Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Verania, and in today's video I do want to talk about the potential upcoming recession, and specifically in this video I want to just kind of explain some of the things that I'm going to be doing with my money and give you some of my key tips which will hopefully help you through this difficult time. Now, if you've been watching the news lately, then you may have heard that there's a lot of things going on. So you've got the fact that we have all of this high inflation, which may even peak at 10%, and that's probably going to be the highest in about 40 years. And at the same time, you may have even been hearing about the term stagflation, which basically happens when you have all of this high inflation, but at the same time you have a weakening economy and wages of course aren't keeping up. Now obviously it's very difficult for us to have control over our external circumstances, but in this video what I want to do is try and give you some tips to help you at least gain some control when it comes to your own personal finances, especially if we do end up heading into a recession. So the first tip I want to give you when it comes to potentially heading into a recession or even dealing with high inflation is to really be aware and try to manage your emotions. Now the reason why I wanted to make this point, and I do think it's actually a really big point, is because if you do tend to listen to the news or you hear about the news, or maybe you're even hearing what people are saying, then you will know that there's probably a lot of negativity going around, and that could have an impact on your emotions. It could also have an impact on your mood, and you could potentially start to get a bit more anxiety, especially when you start to think about your own finances. And so what I'm just trying to say is really be aware of those emotions and be aware of what's going on. So for me personally, I try to limit how much news I actually watch or hear, because I've realized that every time I watch the news, and if it is bad news, because at the end of the day they're probably going to be showing you the bad news, that has an impact on my own mood and my emotions and my anxiety as well. And so what I've tried to do is just limit how much of the news that I'm going to be watching or hearing, and really try to focus on what I can control. Likewise, when it comes to your emotions, it's also important to understand how that might be impacting your actions as well. And so for example, if you're the type of person who maybe if you get stressed, you're likely to impulse buy or impulse spend, then it's going to be vitally important for you to be aware of that if you continue to receive that bad news. I would also point out that you want to make sure that you're not making any illogical decisions. So for example, if the news keeps telling you that stocks are going down and you obviously see that your portfolio has gone down as well, it's really important to make sure that you are making a logical decision. So as an example, if it was me, even if I've seen that stocks are going down on the news, the illogical thing for me to do would be to just sell everything just because stocks are going down. A logical decision for me would be to ask myself, number one, am I investing for the long term? Yes. And number two, do I still think that we will eventually recover? And do I also still see fundamentals in what I'm investing in? If the answers to those two questions are yes, then there would be absolutely no point in me selling my investments, because if I do, I basically base that on my emotions and not logic. So what I'm trying to say is try not to follow the herd mentality. If people are running around like headless chickens, really think about your emotions and think about whether you're thinking from a logical perspective or from an emotional perspective. Because if you are thinking from your emotions, then that could have a negative impact on your finances overall. Now, the next tip I want to give you when it comes to a potential recession and all of this high inflation is to try and make sure that you have your financial house in order. Now, what I mean by this is if you can, and obviously if you're already living paycheck to paycheck, this may be a little bit difficult, but if you can, let's say that you have some money left over, please start setting aside money when it comes to things like building an emergency fund, having a budget, knowing your numbers. Really try to get your financial house in order, because even though we're not in a recession yet, this could happen. And so what you want to do is, if you can, try to be more prepared for it, so that if things happen, let's say you maybe end up losing your job, you could at least have some money to tide you over so that you can pay your bills. As well as that, guys, if you do not have a budget, now is the time to have one. It's going to be really important to understand your numbers. And what I mean by this is understanding the income that is coming in versus the expenses that are going to be going out, because then that will allow you to understand exactly how much money you can then allocate to certain expenses. Now, if you've never made a budget before, then don't worry, because Auntie V always has your back. I do have so many budgeting videos, and I have a lot of saving videos that will talk through how you can actually create a budget and how you can stick to that budget as well. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. I will link one up here for you, and and in the description below. But guys, especially if you're watching this maybe during the summertime, now is going to be the most important time to really start getting your financial house in order, because I'm not going to lie to you, winter is coming and we have been told that inflation could potentially be worse once we head into winter time. So please, if you have not really focused on your finances before and you've maybe been procrastinating, now is the time to change that. So the next tip I want to give when it comes to a potential upcoming recession and high inflation is to really start to reassess your priorities, especially when it comes to your finances. And so what I mean by this is you want to be thinking about what's important now. So for example, you want to make sure that at least your necessities are covered first, and then everything else will basically be a bonus and you can decide what you want to prioritize. So when it comes to necessities, ideally you're going to be thinking about housing. So do you have money to pay for your mortgage or rent? Then you're probably going to be thinking about transport, especially if you do travel to work. So really making sure that you have money to cover that essentially. Another necessity is obviously going to be food. And so when you're thinking about groceries, that has also increased. What you now might start to focus on is how can you actually save money on groceries even if prices have increased. Now, if you are looking for some grocery tips, especially if you are trying to save money on groceries, I do have a video that talks about that in a bit more detail, and I share how we've been able to save money on groceries. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. I will of course link it up here for you and in the description below. Then of course another necessity could be clothing, but what I'm essentially talking about is just making sure that you have clothes to wear, and if you do have clothes to wear, then obviously you don't need to buy anymore, and that's probably not going to be a necessity. So really the three main things I would be looking at is housing, and that will include things like your essential bills, like your utility bills, food, and then transport. Now once you've got those necessities covered, then if you obviously have some spare cash, you can now start to think about other things that you may want to prioritize, particularly when it comes to your financial goals or when it comes to your spending as well. So for example, you could still be trying to save for things like a house, maybe you're saving up for a car or a wedding or anything like that. Just thinking about what you might want to prioritize will be important, because if prices have been increasing and let's say you're not making that much money, then ideally what you'll want to do is at least think about what's more important to you. So for example, in our case, we still really want to go on holiday this year, just because it's been so long since I have been on holiday. It's probably been about 4 years, and so that's what we're going to be prioritizing, obviously after we've paid for our necessities, and being aware that we're in a fortunate position that we also have our financial foundation set as well. So for us, the holiday is going to be the next big thing. Now if you maybe want a bit more information when it comes to managing your money in general, you can definitely check out my free money management guide, because what I do is just talk about some of the steps that I took to really start managing my money better, which has allowed us to take control of our finances even if we are in a period of high inflation. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. I will of course link it up here for you and in the description below. Now the fourth tip I want to give you when it comes to a potential recession and high inflation is to start looking for opportunities. So when I'm talking about opportunities, one thing could be you thinking about how you could potentially increase your income. Maybe you can try and get a promotion at work, or maybe you could even try to add another stream of income like a side hustle. The reason why that's going to be important is obviously if so many things still start to increase and your wages aren't keeping up, then of course you're going to end up losing money and you're going to be poorer over time. So one opportunity you could be looking at is really trying to use some of the extra time that you have to maybe start a side hustle. Now if you are interested in maybe starting a side hustle, I am actually a part of a membership called Financial Joy Academy. It's run by Ken and Mary from The Humble Penny. You've probably heard of them before because they have an amazing YouTube channel. So if you are thinking about maybe creating another stream of income or starting a side hustle, then definitely make sure you check out their membership. I'll leave a link in the description below for you. The other thing you may want to consider is, as well as increasing your income, if you do have any debts, that's something you may also want to focus on. Now the reason why I say that is obviously since interest rates have been rising, that may also have an impact on your debt, because you may start to see that your interest rates on your debt will increase accordingly. And so what you could be doing is trying to pay off those debts, especially if it is high interest debt, as soon as possible, because what that means is that you're going to end up paying less interest overall, and as a result you'll hopefully be able to get more money in your pocket as well. So personally for me, if I was you, I'd be trying to find as many opportunities as I can. Now the next tip I want to give you when it comes to an upcoming potential recession and all of this high inflation is, if you do have any spare cash or discretionary income, start thinking about investing. Now first of all, you might be asking Auntie V, why on earth would I want to be investing my money during a recession? Now before you click off this video, please hear me out first. first. So when it comes to recessions, did you know that many millionaires are literally made during a recession? And the reason being is because they take advantage of all of the low prices. And so when the majority of people are getting really scared and selling those investments at a loss, that basically means that investments have now become cheap. And so some investors will actually take advantage of that because they can see that some of these investments are on sale. Now, as a disclaimer, obviously I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not telling you what to invest in, but what I'm trying to do is just get you to start thinking about investing your money if you have that discretionary income, because you may find that there's going to be some big opportunities later on if you know what you're doing. Now, if you are in a very fortunate position where potentially you could start investing your money, but you have no idea how, or you're maybe very scared to actually pull the plug and start investing, especially because of everything that's going on, then definitely check out my one-on-one coaching, because what I can do is help you really overcome those fears and teach you the process in terms of how you can actually start investing with confidence regardless of whether we head into a recession or not. So if you're interested, you can book a free call with me. I'll link more information up here for you and in the description below. But if you do decide that you want to consider investing and taking advantage, it's really, really important for you to, number one, understand the risk, and also to make sure that you do have your financial house in order. So for me personally, I'm not going to be investing any money that I will need within the next year. When I actually invest my money, I'm not looking to take that money out for at least 5 years minimum. And so you want to be really, really clear on your goals and really make sure you have a great financial foundation, especially when it comes to investing. So if you did like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments what are some things you're doing to prepare for a potential recession. I do post every Tuesday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next Tuesday.